This module will apply what we learned about syllable structure to the issue of timing. Stress is a combination of length, something is longer in milliseconds, pitch, that it's higher in terms of hertz, and volume, that it's louder in terms of decibels. Beats has something to do with all of this, but it's a term from music. It has to do with sort of the rhythm of stressed versus unstressed syllables. A beat would really be a length of time, and you would measure this in beats per minute. And so if you think of it, if we have a song that has fewer beats per minute, like dun da da dun dun da 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 da, I could increase the beats per minute, dun da 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 da. And so the music stays the same, but I'm actually squeezing it to go faster. So this would be sort of a measure of rate, beats per minute, and also kind of length of time. And if we think of different time signatures in music, like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That very stressed first beat in all of those would be sort of getting a beat. So I've got an equal length of time. If I keep the beat the same, I'm just squeezing more notes into that space between beats. Let's look at how this might apply to language. So in this sentence, what I have is a sentence with obviously many, many syllables, but there's only a few stressed syllables. So butte and beautiful, mount and mountain, peered and appeared, fixed and transfixed, and dist and distance. So what I do as an English speaker is I tend to actually give 5 beats to this. So there's 5 stressed syllables, so I'll speak it with 5 beats. The beautiful mountain appeared transfixed in the distance. You can hear I'm doing regular clapping. The beautiful mountain appeared transfixed in the distance. And I'll tend to adjust my speech so that each of the stressed syllables would land on one of the beats. So that one had 14 syllables and was 5 beats long. A weird thing about a language like English is that I could actually even add more syllables. This one has 17 syllables, but it still would take 5 beats. He can come on Saturdays if he doesn't schedule any appointments. He can come on Saturdays if he doesn't schedule any appointments. He can come on Saturdays if he doesn't schedule any appointments. So even though the total number of syllables is greater in the second sentence than in the first, the amount of time it would take to say this will be the exact same. Because I don't adjust my timing, the timing doesn't depend on how many syllables I'm pronouncing, it depends on how many beats, and in the case of English, how many stressed syllables. We can see this again in another pair of sort of famous sayings. Hell hath no fury like a lover scorned, or hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. 10 syllables, 4 beats. Watched pots never boil. This only has 5 syllables, but it still takes that 4 beats to say. It's much, much shorter than the previous idiom. But because each of the words in this idiom is a content word, it would get its own beat. Watched pots never boil. Watched pots never boil. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. So again, the amount of time doesn't depend on the amount of syllables, it depends on the amount of beats. And I can actually use a metronome app that I downloaded off of the App Store to prove this. This is a little fast. You can adjust it to go faster, or you can adjust it to go slower. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Watched pots never boil. And I can use this metronome app to test that indeed it does take the same amount of beats. This app makes sure that they're exactly the same time apart. The beautiful mountain appeared transfixed in the distance. He can come on Saturdays if he doesn't schedule any appointments. Again, so it's the same amount of beats even though the amount of syllables are different. This is what we call a stress-timed language, and English is the quintessential stress-timed language. The timing, how much time it takes to say something, is totally dependent on the amount of stress syllables, not total syllables. So stress timing versus syllable timing, again, I have something like dogs chase cats. I timed myself saying this as an English speaker in my native English speaking rhythm. It took me 1.9 seconds to say. The dogs chase the cats. It took me 1.94 seconds to say, even though I'm throwing in a few extra thes in there. The dogs are chasing the cats. I've got the and are and ing in there thrown in, but again, it only took me 1.95 seconds to say. So as an English speaker, because the number of beats is the same, the length is the same. However, there's lots of languages which don't use this syllable timing. Spanish and Chinese are perfect examples, where each syllable would get a partial beat in each of those. So dogs chase cats, the dogs chase the cats, dogs chase cats, the dogs chase the cats, the dogs are chasing the cats. So for a speaker of a language that doesn't make much of a difference between stressed and unstressed syllables, there's very little difference between pitch, very little difference in length, little difference in terms of loudness. What they tend to also do is give each syllable about the same beat, whether it's unstressed or stressed, because they're not used to making this drastic distinction between them. So the blue timings here are ones that I did if I was speaking it with a syllable timed accent. Dogs chase cats, it took me much shorter to say that than an English speaker would, 1.4 seconds. But then as I add in these extra syllables, I'm actually pronouncing each of these syllables. The dogs are chasing the cats. The dogs are chasing the cats. That will take me 2.2 seconds to say, so much longer than it would for a native English speaker, because I'm actually trying to pronounce fully each of those syllables. I'm giving each of those syllables a beat. It gets even worse. People plant trees. As a native English speaker, I would pause between each of those because they each get a beat. They're each a content word getting a stress syllable. People plant trees. The people are planting trees. It takes me the same amount of time to say, the people have planted some trees. You can see these little unstressed syllables and going da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The people have planted some trees. The people should have planted some more trees. That takes me a little bit longer to say. People plant trees took me 1.87 seconds, which is right about the same. It's 3 beats long. The people should have planted some more trees. I've got to squeeze a lot more. I've got 3 unstressed syllables here, 2 there, or 3 there. The pull should have. So that took me a little bit longer, 2.0 seconds, but it wasn't very drastic. However, if I say this as a Chinese learner of English would, or a Spanish learner of English, people plant trees. The people should have planted some more trees. So if I'm going to pronounce every syllable equally long and give each syllable an equal amount of time, that adds up very fast. I end up speaking at 3.1 seconds compared to 1.2. So this one without very many unstressed syllables takes way shorter than a native English speaker. The one with many unstressed syllables takes way longer than a native English speaker. And this is the problem with timing. If I was a speaker of a syllable-timed language and I end up speaking a stress-timed language in a syllable-timed way, people will think I'm very slow. They won't really hear much intonation. They'll think I'm emotionless. It'll sound robotic to them. People will begin to lose their patience. Likewise, if I try to apply stress timing to a syllable-timed language, I might sound over-exaggerated or over-emotional because I'm making too much of a difference between stressed and unstressed syllables. My intonation range from the high sounds ah to the low sounds is going to be rather extreme, and I'm going to be speeding through the unstressed syllables. I may be mispronouncing them. So for an English learner of a language like Russian, that contributes to this impression of like extreme emotionality or even insincerity because of the extremes that I'm producing. One thing that we can do with learners is to actually use a metronome app like the one that I had downloaded, or even the stopwatch to time how long it takes to say something. So boys, girls, don't fight. Where each word is a single syllable and each one gets its own beat. Boys, girls, don't fight. That should take about the same amount of time to say as saying the word watermelon 4 times. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. So we can actually use this sort of musical training. Boys, girls, don't fight. Would take the same amount of time as Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. Manager, 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 manager. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. That you can actually build up and do some of this musical training with the learners of a language to get them to really unstress these unstressed syllables. These really need to be swallowed and pronounced very quickly. If I try to say manager, 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 watermelon, watermelon, watermelon. I'm going to end up saying watermelon in the same amount of time as I say boys, girls, don't fight. Boys, girls, don't fight. Watermelon. Watermelon should take the same amount of time as just the word boys because there's only one beat, there's only one stress in that. So you can actually use the stopwatch and have learners time how long it takes them to say each of these strings. Use the metronome app again. Boys, girls, don't fight. Boys, girls, don't fight. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, manager, 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 watermelon, 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 and get them to get used to swallowing those unstressed syllables in between the stresses. Are you getting good at reading the IPA? This is a phonemic transcription for a phrase in the English language. B-U-T-I-F. If I were to try to pronounce this out, it would be, but if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get a beat. So this would be the underlying phonemic categories that were divided then into syllables. So you have all these syllable boundaries inserted. Then I have to assign stress to this, but if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get a beat. So I can see I've got some primary stressed syllables and some unstressed syllables. I can group those into these feet, these metric feet of iambs and trochees if I wanted to do that. But if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get a beat. So English likes to use this sort of metric feet of trochees and iambs so that these stressed syllables are always grouped together with an unstressed syllable. Even if sometimes you have two stressed syllables in a row, speak English. But if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get a beat. Syllables, and then we've got two unstressed syllables next to each other. So this was again the phonemic transcription, but a phonemic transcription that would include the stress assignment and the metric feet. And actually we saw already that allophonic rules apply to unstressed syllables. That a lot of times a phoneme will take a different pronunciation if it's unstressed. So like this diphthong I, if it's unstressed, it doesn't usually get pronounced as an I, it gets pronounced as an ah. And so what I see when I actually try to pronounce this fast, the gray syllables here are the unstressed one, and this is a phonetic transcription. I'm trying to record what I'm actually pronouncing. But if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get the beat. But if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get the beat. But if I speak English, only the stressed syllables get a beat. That's how it would be transcribed. And we can see that with the stress assignment, what was the underlying phonemes, the allophones that I pick out may be different than if they were stressed syllables. And I use that allophonic difference plus the combination between volume, pitch, and rate that I see to distinguish stressed and unstressed in order to figure out what someone was actually saying. So here's a kind of an exercise that you could do if you're trying to teach people who speak syllable-timed languages to speak a stress-timed way of speaking. So here the yellow ones are words that would get a beat, and then the blue stuff would be just weak stuff in between. So what, think, movie. What, think, movie. What did you think of that movie? What did you think of that movie? What I think that movie did. What I think that movie. What did you think of that movie? What are they going to think of that movie? I can actually put lots of unstressed syllables in here. 1, 2, 3, and it will take the same amount of time to say with the metronome because it's the same amount of beat. Car, flat, tire. I could say something like, what happened to you? 3 words. Car, flat, tire. So I've got that same amount of beats. Car had a flat tire. Car had a flat little tire. I can stick all kinds of unstressed things. Find short